got my master's, got done with my master's. As I was finishing, I got my first energy medicine modality under my belt. And I was doing the job hunt and found that whether it was an out of the system NGO nonprofit or in the system local or federal EPA, you know that feeling of when like you're pushing, doors are not opening easily. It wasn't coming together, that thing.
Yep. Yes.
I paid attention to it and I said, okay, what are you trying to show me? And so what I got was it wasn't time yet. The marketplace and society itself wasn't ready to shift into non-fossil fuel reliance. It just wasn't time. So if we were going to have the shift that was going to help protect our planet and so that we can still live, it was going to happen one consciousness at a time.
That's exactly what we teach. Exactly. I love this. Let's talk about something very specific. You said the shift began in 2012. I think we all know that's when the Mayan calendar ends, all of these things. And by golly, you know, what I discovered was from 2012 on, suddenly when I was speaking before a group, I wasn't looking at a bunch of blank faces. Suddenly everybody's lights were on. It was the weirdest thing. I absolutely agree with you. The shift meaningfully started in 2012.
That's a great description. Thanks for that. That means something to me, what you just said.
But it's true.
I know. I just totally relate. I really do.
It's wonderful. And you say, one of the things this is typical of this book, everyone. She and I have had two different paths, so we talk in two different ways, but we're saying the same thing. Well, one of the things you say is we're shifting from a mind vibration to a heart vibration. Very true. From my perspective, what I tell people is it's all mind-heart, but the ego gets in the way. And so once we vanquish the ego and the ego gets out of the way, we can work mind-heart very effectively. So we're saying the same thing, but it's in different, just using different words. Which to me is very exciting, as I say. I love it.
Roberta, you know what I love? I love in this moment right now, sitting here, listening to you and your beautiful consciousness and heart find our similarities. So many people, when they are more of the ego mind, as it's called in meditation, in yoga, ego-mind, because the identity is seen as a part of the mind, and that's part of what hooks us, the identity level, personality level of ourselves. So people are more ego mind and less heart and less of an awakened consciousness and evolved consciousness like you, they'll look for differences.
Yes. How dumb. Really.
Instead of the unity, right?
Yes. Yeah. You say that the ego-based life and power over others is up now. Oh, my goodness. That's so true. It's all about power over ourselves. Mm-hmm. I think that's so profound, and that's exactly what I teach. Once you raise your own consciousness vibration, everything changes in your life. It's all you can't help, as you say, you can't help laughing all the time. It's true. You can't possibly get any happier, and then you get even happier. It's just so amazing. Oh, wonderful. So yes, I talked with your book quite a bit as I was reading it because I so much agreed. Here's something else, everyone, that I'm sorry I had to take over from you, but I want people to see what a great book this is. You say there are two false science-based assumptions, and these actually are the basic two. Number one, everything is separate from everything else. Not true. Number two, emotions are private. You say they both violate Max Planck's insight that there is a matrix of connectivity. Exactly right. I talk about poor dear Dr. Planck all the time. It's true. I just love the man. He's so adorable, actually. And they both also violate some of what we're learning from many different sources now is frankly true. We're learning this from everywhere. It's no longer something that is esoteric, maybe comes from Eastern teachings. The same thing can be found in the teachings of Jesus. The same thing can be found when we research the afterlife. It all is the same. And we are all so deeply connected that there isn't even a line that separates us. It's so wonderful.
Okay, so I know you already experienced this, but to the listeners, you know how when somebody, you're thinking about somebody all of a sudden, and then a text or a message comes in from them or a call within 15 minutes? That's an example of the interconnectivity.
Yeah, it happens all the time, actually.
Yeah.
That's right.
you can work with it. And so there's so many directions I could go right now from what you just did. What direction do you want me to go in?
Well, I want to talk about some of your actual ideas. The point of the book really is getting rid of the blocks that exist, and I don't do this nearly as much as I should. I don't even try to do it because I haven't had them in my life, so I don't understand or recognize them. But talk about some of those maybe. What are some of the things that keep people, maybe people who regularly listen here or people who listen to you, that keep people from understanding, experiencing this ultimate connectedness and the fact that you do have the power to raise your vibration? What are some of those blocks?
Well, one of the things that I got into in Reasonable Dragons is you saw the discussion. And by the way, it's funny, this is the only book of my 4 that is on audible.com. And people love listening to this because I had just finished leading retreats over in what's known as the heart chakra of the planet. Because, yes, the planet also has an energy distribution system. And I was really, really high because I had just given so many attunements to so many students. And so I receive as give as any energy medicine practitioner does if they're doing it the right way instead of the old way, which is it's coming from me and I'm taking on the person's thing. None of that noise. So I was high and light, and I had set it up with an American-based person in a studio over there. And so I was in a sacred spot. I was really high. And I have people who pay 5 figures to work with me. They're getting access to so many clearings and activations, and yet they still go back and listen to that because they love it so much. So that really rocked my world when I was told that last bit. So it's on audible.com, Reasonable Dragons. And one of the things that I started to that I had never done yet out in public in any of my writing or talks or whatever was initiation, in the sense that you can spin like the Tasmanian devil and stay like circling yourself and chasing your tail until you get to a certain point when you have an opening. And in that opening, that's where you start to work to come out of who you thought you were and become more of who you really are. And so that sounds really intangible. What I mean,
let's get sort of down into the weeds with everybody. How do we get through that?
So the way that I've seen it, I already alluded to a little bit earlier when I was saying it seems to me like a lot of people need crisis. What I was seeing like I saw some of the earliest things for more advanced people happening around 29. And then I came back to the States in 2010 after the decade in Asia, teaching at an international school and an administrator, and then studying all of this on the side and traveling and staying over there and learning on weekdays, at night after the gym, and then on weekends. So my whole life was geared towards becoming a Qigong teacher, becoming a certified yoga teacher in meditation.
Wow. Yeah. Good for you.
Going to monasteries, learning that like in a monastery, the biggest room isn't the room. The biggest amount of real estate on a monastery isn't where they meditate. It's classrooms where they go into dialogue talking about the sutras. Sutras is a version of like what's in the Bible, the verses. So dialogue about what was meant. So that was eye-opening for me. I mean, I would do sometimes my runs behind one monastery in particular that was just beautiful. So it was a point of direction to learn about consciousness and how it works and how consciousness and our subtle energy system or the chakra column interact to then help us lighten up our vibe. So and evolve and expand and get more in touch and more led by our soul, our heart, and our guidance system. So yoga, translated from Sanskrit to English, means to yoke with. And what that means ultimately is above our heads, to yoke with first our own higher self, as they call it, capital H, capital S, and then even further above our heads to ultimately yoke with the divine, so that our consciousness gets shifted so that we have more access to that connection and the voice that's connected, intuitive guidance that's connected to that higher version of ourselves and even the divine, rather than what am I going to do about this person who makes me annoyed kinds of focus in our mind. Right. So a block can show up as there's two different ways I can answer this, Roberta. One of them is that if somebody is having, like, the people were coming to me in 2011, and these were more advanced folks, and they were aware something was starting, and they were like, I usually am so happy and light, and I feel like this gray cloud around my head. And these are people who have been on the path for a while, and I had quite a few people saying this to me. And then after 2012, I started fielding a lot of people coming into me and my business and platform with multiple crises. Right?
Yeah.
Do you want to add to that?
No, go ahead. No, but I can identify. It's very hard sometimes to see people suffering and know how to help them, but not be able to get there and actually help them, not be able to get quite through to them. No, it's not their time yet to become whole. I mean, this is not for sissies, this work that you and I do.
No, but it's the work that everybody needs to be doing now. And indeed, if everybody was more proactive about this, we would have had COVID last less long.
Oh, right. Everything would be better. It would be, yeah. I mean, it would only what talking about in Camelot, it only rains for 1 hour a day or something like that. Everything would be better. You'd be. There's no way to even begin to talk about it. But you and I will. We'll do this again, and we'll talk about what's at stake and where we're going. But continue. So basically, you can help people then to get rid of the blocks. That you can help them find what's in their way, and then help them get past it, break through it.
Yes. So there's two different versions. There's people who are proactively seeking, like many of you listeners, as Roberta and I spoke about, who is listening to this, so I could frame it. And then there's people who require the crisis because they just don't want to proactively seek. And that...
Yeah. They have something to deal with now that they have to put off whatever greater things there are. Yep.
So it could be a physical issue. Like I had one client who became a student of mine, getting attuned and becoming an energy medicine practitioner herself. Her husband had some kind of physical issue, and he consulted Western medicine and a bunch of different times, and they led him astray. She knew one of the biggest turning points in the gradual increase as people get trained with vibration upgrade system in the higher levels. One of the biggest pivot points is coming out of where you want to help somebody and they're not ready, and you kind of say stuff to them anyway, rather than pulling back and directing a more concentrated power towards people who are already saying, yes, please. It's a huge, huge reframing. And it really, I watch student after student do that pivot. And retrain them to only focus on people who are choosing it already, rather than hammering at people who just aren't there, because that's between them, their soul, and the divine. And so this guy, so she didn't say anything to him other than, hey, try this essential oil one time. She was really conservative with him. And so the first thing non-Western was hemp, some kind of the CBD oil. And from there, he keeps having situations with Western medicine where it's not getting healed. And I just recently heard something about, and in my first book, I talk about this. This is the book I wrote my 10th year. It started as my dissertation for my PhD over in Asia. And it became What If There's Nothing Wrong, my first book. And I go through this, how Western medicine's really good at trauma, really good at surgery, because we have the boys with their toys. And then and just recently, doctors are coming out saying one of the lacks in their training is how to deal with chronic conditions. And it's not to medicate. It's not like keeping your blood pressure low through medication is preventative medicine. What I do is preventative medicine.
Yes.
So when people hit that threshold of crisis, or maybe mom dies, husband or wife leaves, so divorce is happening and job loss happens, they need to understand, like, when all of that hits at the same time, they're looking for help and guidance through it. And that's when the ego is able to be collapsed enough for the person to go into surrender. Yeah,
hopefully. Wow. Yeah, no, it's this. I have I've talked with people who and emailed with people who have been in these crises, and I understand it's a very difficult thing. It's wonderful that you help them. Are there less expensive ways that people, if someone's thinking, gee, I think I could use her help, are there less